It's 2025. You've had your Nintendo Switch for anywhere between 5 and 8 years. You were very much excited for the Nintendo Switch 2, but due to a plethora of reasons, you are no longer interested in buying the console. Whether it's because you disagree with the prices, don't like the fact that they're trying to implement the game key cards, or the commotion behind the arbitration, the remote bricking, and the inferior game sharing. Whatever the case may be, you may still be a Nintendo fan and you want to enjoy Nintendo games. And for the sake of this practice, let's assume you're no longer interested in playing anything on the Switch. There are many different types of experiences from Nintendo that could still be enjoyed to this day, and you could probably argue it is one of the best times to be a Nintendo fan, specifically if you're interested in going backwards. Now, I'm going to assume that you're somebody that's more interested in gaming around a television, maybe even looking for that fun Nintendo multiplayer, and due to whatever reason it may be, you just don't feel like it's the right time to invest into a PC, or potentially even a Steam Deck. You want that classic console gaming feel. And while the retro gaming scene may feel like it is outdated, and it may not necessarily be as affordable as it should be, there are many ways where if you were to move backwards instead, you could get a solid Nintendo experience that may not even feel that outdated when you consider the types of games that Nintendo makes, and the heart and spirit that has been in their titles for generations at this point. Now, I want to break this down in a few different ways. I don't only want to consider the price. I also want to consider the practicality. So while it would be amazing to have a giant bookshelf filled with a bunch of games, and a TV stand that has a cubby with every single console from 1980 until now sitting right under it, as well as going out of your way to buy a CRT, I don't think that's really practical for the average gamer. Not the modern gamer anyway. I think for the average person, you're looking at a flat screen TV that comes with 2 or 3 HDMI ports, and realistically, no slots available for your AV cables. Now, if you happen to be an enthusiast for a specific console, let's say it's the Wii or the GameCube or the SNES, then there are various different modification tools to get them hooked up onto your HDMI and still output in a quality that you would see worthy. In general, they're fairly pricey though. You can go for the cheap stuff. It's passable, but it won't be the best quality you're looking for. And really how terrible that quality is kind of varies from person to person and how sensitive they are to these things. Like I've used a $25 Hyperkin cable for both the Wii and the Nintendo 64. It's been fine enough, even when doing 4-player split screen. But I would say that if you're somebody passionate about a specific console and you wanted to play it on a modern TV, then you're looking into the type of modifications which involve changing the output on your console or a RetroTink. There are many different tutorials and pages online you could look into if that's what you're looking to invest in. But I would say that's not that practical for the average gamer. It's more effort and potentially more money than many people would want to put into this. So obviously, a lot of this discussion is going to involve emulation. I'm going to assume all of you have already ripped your ROMs off your cartridges and they're ready to go. Basically, anything before the Nintendo 64, including the handhelds up to the Game Boy Advance, can be played on pretty much anything at this point. And like a lot of the first party games that you're going to want to play are realistically already on the Nintendo Switch Online for those consoles too. So if you have a Nintendo Switch and you're an online member, you're already playing these games realistically speaking, and if not, you probably can just play them on pretty much any electronic you have in your house. Not to mention, if you have a Wii or a Wii U, it's very easy to get those games up and running on your console. Now the difficulty kind of starts with the Nintendo 64. Due to the architecture of the Nintendo 64, something that I really have zero knowledge about, it's one of the more difficult emulation experiences. Whatever device you're trying to play your Nintendo 64 games on is usually going to come with a pretty robust compatibility list on Wikipedia, and the visuals won't always match up exactly how you want them to look. Now, on the Wii, or more specifically the Wii U, if you're able to get the Nintendo 64 games running on Virtual Console, which there are various modifiable ways to get them running on there if you missed out on buying it on the store, and again, you'd be able to do this using your own legally obtained ROMs, then in that case, the quality of the emulation of the Nintendo 64 game will vary, but it's usually pretty good. If it's a random Nintendo 64 game that wasn't available on Virtual Console, you might still be able to make it work, but it's not always doable. Now, I'm a Nintendo 64 guy. It might not be the console that I play the most these days, but it is the console that I spent the most time playing throughout most of my life. In my opinion, I still think the best way to experience the Nintendo 64 games are with a Nintendo 64 console specifically. And I don't know how to explain it, but I don't feel like the games play well on a modern console. And that is in large due to the Nintendo 64 controller's form factor. Honestly, I probably have like 10 or 15 different Nintendo 64 controllers down in storage somewhere. I got various different types of wireless third-party ones, and they seem to have been working for the most part in our gaming sessions. The only caveat is the Nintendo 64 joystick is harder to imitate, so it may affect some minor moments in your experience depending on what you're playing, but if you're not a purist, it shouldn't really bother you too much. And if you add your favorite flash cart onto that, you don't even gotta frequently take your games in and out of the cartridge. The first video I posted on this channel was my Super 64 flash cart. It's been sitting in my Nintendo 64 since I made that video, and I've had no issues with it up until now. And I still regularly play ROM hacks like Dragon Ball Z Kart and Super Smash Bros. Remix. Now, that being said, I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on being a Nintendo 64 enthusiast and getting yourself a Nintendo 64. I think it's a hard sell for many people that are too far removed from that era. But I do think there could be an argument made that a Wii U playing the Nintendo 64 games is not the worst thing that you can do. You may sometimes find yourself having to tinker with the control schemes to make it work better, obviously because the Nintendo 64 had the C buttons, which effectively made it have 6 face buttons. But the Wii U running Nintendo 64 games is an entirely viable option here. So right off the bat, you're looking at a pretty good start for the Wii U. It can run the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance stuff, and it can run everything up to Nintendo 64, console-wise. So you might wonder if there is an advantage the Wii might have over the Wii U. And there is one, but it might depend on the type of setup you want to create. So the Wii, specifically the earlier models of the Wii, which I believe are the ones that sold the most throughout the Wii's lifetime, has the full GameCube compatibility built into it right out of the box, including the 4 GameCube ports, as well as the 2 memory card ports. If you value the GameCube experience, but you want to do more than just play on the GameCube, the Wii is basically the easiest route you can take at that point. You get yourself a Wii and a GameCube, and both of those libraries are massive, and once you collect yourself a few Wii remotes and classic controllers as well as classic controller pros, then you've got a pretty good setup. Set up for a Nintendo experience, at least. But, and this is not really groundbreaking news for anybody, but the Wii U can actually support the GameCube natively via a soft mod. And homebrewing your Wii U is basically the same as homebrewing your Wii, since it's got the virtual Wii setup in there. And it's very easy to homebrew. Not to mention that, unlike the Wii U still has the HDMI port that goes directly into your television. So assuming you have all of your ISOs ripped for the Wii as well as for the GameCube, with an SD card or an external hard drive plugged into your Wii U, you're looking at the entirety of the Nintendo library at this point, prior to the Switch. Because you're running everything the Wii U can run, everything the Wii can run, and everything the GameCube can run natively. And it's all plugged in simply with a direct HDMI from the Wii U to the TV. You could get a GameCube adapter to allow you to use your GameCube controllers for the GameCube titles, but my preferred setup is to have the Wii Remote with the 4 classic controller pros. And really, the reason I opted for that is for simplicity's sake. I already have too many controllers under my TV, I didn't want to have a bunch of different ones that were being used on the same console. Especially considering I have 4 Wii Remotes, 4 nunchucks, and 4 classic controller pros, in addition to a single Wii U Pro controller for when I want to play a Wii U title. Now, hypothetically speaking, I could have just gotten 4 Wii U Pro controllers. But the issue with that before was that when you would play the Wii games, some Wii games would only work with the Wiimote Nunchuck, other ones would only work with a Classic Controller Pro. So the Wii U Pro controller could not run the actual Wii games. I think that has since changed now, where natively you can run Wii games that were originally only for the Classic Controller Pro with the Wii U Pro controller, but I cannot say that for certain. You'd have to look that up. But there was also the added benefit that anytime I wanted to play a GameCube game, I could use either the Wii U controller or the Classic Controller Pros. Or, again, you could just plug in an adapter and use a GameCube controller. Now, there's actually one more benefit to the Wii U experience. You could run DS games. The bottom screen would effectively be the touchscreen that's in your hand, and the top screen would be what you're seeing on the TV. The Wii U had many of these DS games officially available to buy and play on the console itself back when the Nintendo eShop was still open, which means many of the more popular first-party titles that you're interested in will be able to run fairly easily. And for everything else, there's an injection tool. Now, obviously, that is going to come with a compatibility list, and your results may vary depending on what you're looking for. But this just adds to the benefit of having a Wii U in 2025. And I haven't even considered the consoles from Sega in the 90s that were available, obviously not including the Dreamcast, as well as the PlayStation 1, which can run to an extent on the Wii U as well, making the Wii U very marketable. This is of course in addition to all of the Wii U games that are available. The Wii U has a pretty good library. A lot of the first party ones were ported to the Switch, so they were good enough for the Switch, they're good enough for the Wii U as well. The gamepad makes for an easy handheld experience if you're willing to stay home, which I think for many Switch users is how they played with the Switch. They just played handheld at home. So it's a pretty easy way to have a single console connected to your TV that runs everything that you want from Nintendo, almost exactly the way it was intended to run, with a few exceptions with the Nintendo 64, for example. So you could play something like Mario Galaxy 2 on there, followed by Yoshi's Woolly World, and then your choice of 3 different versions of Twilight Princess or 2 different versions of Wind Waker. And to relax for a bit, you can finally try out the single-player campaign of Mario Party DS, followed by playing Donkey Kong 64. And of course, all of the 2D stuff that comes before it. It's a pretty solid deal in my opinion, with the only asterisk being the Nintendo 64 experience may vary in results as well as the DS experience. Now, it may seem like it's a pretty easy choice, right? The Wii U, 2025, Nintendo's best console, go for it. But I think there are a few other factors that are worth considering. Maybe the portability is a lot more important to you. You don't want to play on the TV, you want something that'll last on the go. You also might really like DS games. And maybe after having the Nintendo Switch, you already feel like you got enough of the Wii U, GameCube experience, maybe even the Nintendo 64 experience, depending on what you actually want to play on NSO. This is where the 3DS actually comes into the conversation. Now, at the moment, the 3DS is probably way more overpriced, especially if you're just going to go on eBay and buy it. The Wii U is arguably also pretty overpriced, but there are a lot more 3DSs out there available. Some of the more affordable ones are the Japanese version, but once you get into the homebrew stuff, you can kind of fix that issue. Otherwise, it's a matter of shopping around. And again, in both of these cases, you're homebrewing and you can probably buy the games for a pretty affordable price. But for all this stuff, it's probably easier just to shop around on Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp. It won't make it that easy to find the best deal, but it'll be easier than, I don't know, trying to pre-order something these days. But yeah, I mean, if you already have all of your ROMs ripped from your cartridges that you had many years ago and they're just sitting on a hard drive right now for whatever reason, you don't even got to worry about this discussion. Now, personally, I prefer the new 3DS XL. I have a new 2DS XL, which is also pretty good, but I don't know, something about the 3DS XL just makes it feel a little bit more beefy. Plus you get the 3D feature, which I always have turned off, so I don't even know why I like it so much, but I guess it's cool to turn on every now and again. The added benefit of the 3DS, however, is that it could actually run DS games natively. So now you have the entirety of the 3DS library as well as the entirety of the DS library without worrying about all of the compatibility lists that would come with the Wii U. I personally have 3 different 3DSs that have 3DS games and DS games, and we use them quite often for game nights or if we're all traveling somewhere, because they're easy enough to fit into your pocket and get a quick game going while you're on an airplane or at a cabin or whatever. Bringing up Mario Party DS like I did for the Wii U, if you're playing Mario Party DS on the Wii U, you're limited to single-player Mario Party. If you're playing it natively on the DS or on the 3DS, you can play multiplayer, so you can play a multiplayer game multiplayer the way it's intended to be played. And you just might be surprised how much more fun Mario Party could get when you're not sharing the same screen and when you throw touchscreen minigames into the mix. I might not consider it the best Mario Party, but I will say it does refresh the experience when the regular stuff starts to get a little bit older. Now, in addition to the 3DS library and the DS library, the 3DS still runs everything from the Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo downwards. And it technically runs the SNES and the Game Boy Advance libraries natively. Although that might not be the case on the original 3DS, it might be only from the new ones onwards. I don't remember the exact details, but skip with the new model to be safe. It's better anyway. So basically, if you're looking at the Wii U versus the 3DS, on the Wii U, you would get just about the full home console experience, with an above average Nintendo 64 experience, as well as an okay DS experience, in addition to all of the retro stuff prior to the 64 and the DS. But if you were to pick up a 3DS instead, you'd sacrifice the Wii U, and the GameCube and the Nintendo 64, but you would gain a massive 3DS library, the full native DS experience, and all of the stuff prior to the DS and prior to the Nintendo 64 in your pocket, ready to be taken with you wherever you want to go. This is largely why many people say that now in 2025, the best Nintendo experience is to own a Wii U and a 3DS. Because with both of them homebrewed, you pretty much have the full native experience for whatever you want to play, with arguably only the Nintendo 64 being the exception, because I would classify all of the Game Boy and the stuff prior to the Nintendo 64 as being acceptable no matter how you play it. Again, if you're a purist for those retro stuff, you would probably think that what I just said was blasphemy, but I'm talking about for the average gamer. So at the moment, I think it's pretty simple. If you skipped out on the Wii U or the 3DS, this is a very good time to buy in. The homebrewing tutorials are very simple for the both of them, and there's a lot you can do across the two consoles to even run the games natively with better visuals. There are quick tutorials to show you how to make a Wii game look better on the Wii U than it did on the actual Wii. There are little tutorials to show you how to make a DS game run better on the 3DS than it did on the actual DS. But even if you don't tinker, it's good enough. Now, I would argue these are both very good options. This is my current setup. I have a homebrewed Wii U filled with everything that I need on there from every home console basically, as well as my homebrewed 3DSs, both of which have all of my legally obtained ROMs. And since I love my Nintendo 64 and I'm a little bit of a stickler, I have that under my TV as well. But I actually still don't think they are the best Nintendo consoles to buy in 2025. And I'm gonna cheat a little bit here, because while I did say we're looking for the best Nintendo console, there's also a console that would be great for Nintendo games that is not a Nintendo console. And that's actually the Xbox Series S. Before Microsoft decided to stupidly up the price on the Series X, I probably would have just recommended that one. But seeing as how you can get a Series S for about $270 on Swappa right now, I'd say you can get the job done on that console for a much more affordable price. So basically, on these Xbox consoles, Microsoft allows you to access Dev Mode for all of $19. Dev Mode allows developers to create, test, and distribute applications on the Xbox platform. To dumb it down to a level that I understand, for me it just feels like you pay $19 and now your Xbox is homebrewed. Now, in Dev Mode, there are a plethora of emulators available. This includes Dolphin, which runs GameCube very well as the Wii, but it will not run the Wii U. Now, similar to when you pin the 3DS versus the Wii U about which one would be a better option based off of which consoles it runs best, the Series S comes with a few drawbacks, but it has a lot of positives as well. We'll start with the negatives. Like I mentioned previously, you can't run the Wii U, so you're losing access to those games. In addition to that, if you are going to run the Wii, you won't be able to play anything with the Wii Remote. So if you're the type of gamer that's looking for the waggle controls, then this might not necessarily hit the spot for you. There are ways to bind those controls onto your joystick, for example, so you can still get around with playing the games without the motion controls, and many people already do that on their PC. So I'm not saying you won't get the Wii experience, I'm just saying you won't get the traditional Wii experience. But you still get the full GameCube experience, and you get a much better Nintendo 64 experience than you would on the Wii U. Not to mention, all of these consoles are very easily upscaled, and many of them look very good once you upscale them without adding any custom textures or shaders. NBA Jam on the Wii is one of my favorite games to bring out during our game nights, and we used to play it on the Wii U with the classic controller, but now we play it on the Series S and it just looks so much better on the eyes. And you'll get the same feeling while you're running the GameCube titles. And of course everything else that comes with RetroArch, so all of those older games as well. And pretty much all of them run upscaled. In a lot of ways, this is probably the best console to run most Nintendo games in history, prior to the Nintendo Switch, of course. You miss out on the Wii U. I'm not sure how good 3DS is running on there, but I know they've recently got it running. So it might be a compatibility thing depending on the game, and that's not to mention that the regular DS runs great. But I mean, naturally, if it is a touchscreen heavy title, it might not be the best experience and you might be better off buying a handheld. However, it is nice to be able to play some 3DS and a lot of DS games that only involve the buttons. But there is one massive feature that is not really Nintendo, but I think makes this worth it. You get a very good PlayStation 1 experience that is much better than what you saw on the Wii U, including all of the upscaling, as well as a pretty solid PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, and PSP experience. I played the God of War PSP titles on my Series X. I think I only upscaled them to like 1080p and they looked so good. And not just that, Power Stone 2 on our Xbox upscaled, it looks amazing. Plus you get the Sega Saturn and the 32X. And I know I'm primarily focused on Nintendo, but these are the benefits of jumping in on the Xbox instead of a Wii U. These other consoles did not run on the Wii U, so it just opens up a plethora of more options. And again, you're looking at just a single Xbox Series S or X with one HDMI cable going to your television, upscaling everything to your heart's content. I think if you're using RetroArch, you're capped off at 1080p, but if you download their standalone emulators, you can take it up to 4K on the Series X and 2K on the Series S. But even just for convenience purposes, running it on the Series X RetroArch just going up to 1080p, it drastically improves the experience. And that's all not even including the fact that you get an Xbox. So now whatever indie title or third-party title that you want to buy that's going to end up releasing on the Switch 2 later, or maybe even release on the Switch 1, you could still buy it and play it on the Series S. And of course, this includes the ability to play Game Pass games on there. And many people could argue that if you were going to go this route, you might as well just get a PC or get a Steam Deck. And I think there are very valid arguments to be made for that. But again, if you're looking for that console TV experience, you buy yourself a Series S, you grab 4 controllers, one single HDMI cable goes to your TV, and you already have all of your legally obtained ROMs backed up on a hard drive somewhere. This is easily the best bang for your buck, one-shot, single purchase, Nintendo 2025 purchase, in my opinion. And again, this is with the assumption that your only Nintendo experience to this point, or your only console that you currently own, is a Nintendo Switch. In any case, I just thought this would be a fun exercise to run through. Everything I've said in this video is pretty easy to search. You can find forums all over the place, YouTube videos. I won't recommend anything to anybody because all of my stuff was from a few years ago, so it's probably outdated by now. I'm sure there are more updated versions. But whether you're interested in a Wii U, a 3DS, or even an Xbox Series S, these are all fairly easy tutorials to follow to give yourself the best Nintendo experience that you can get in 2025. So I hope that I've given you something to think about, and hopefully if all of the news around the Switch 2 has bummed you out over the past month, this could be a fun and engaging alternative to sink your time and money into. I always say that I separate the plumber from the corporation. I still love Nintendo games, even if Nintendo as a corporation really sucks. But thankfully, I have plenty of Nintendo games available already, and I have what I feel is the best way to play them for me and the most efficient and fun Nintendo experience for both myself and for game nights. Thank you once again for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.